On this week's episode of Crowdfunding Nerds, we're joined by Avant Games to talk everything Amazon board game sales. We discuss the best types of games to sell on Amazon, best advertising channels for Amazon, branded and unbranded search strategies, partner recommendations, and more. Let's get into it.
Game begin.
Let's go.
You have my bow.
Am I ad?
That's awesome.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another awesome episode of Crowdfunding Nerds. I am your host, Andrew Lowen, and I am joined as always by Sean and not Rick. In Rick's place, we have Henry Winlock of Avant Games, and he is fantastic on a number of levels, but above all else, he is going to teach us how to make money on Amazon. And when I tell you that this guy can teach you how to make money on Amazon, it is not a fly-by-night, pop-up thing. This guy, I am freaking lucky to have this guy on my podcast. He has made lots of money for people on Amazon. I have too, but not like this guy. And so I am so excited to just draw lessons out, because I actually have, the only real experience I have in the board game industry on Amazon is like for myself. We actually actively avoid Amazon for other clients. And that's just because Amazon is really its own beast. I sold, other products like as seen on TV products and things like that. And really, Henry is like the ace in this industry. So first of all, welcome to the show, Henry.
Thanks, Andrew. Happy to join.
Awesome. And so as I mentioned before, our topic is Amazon and how to make money and how not to make massive mistakes. And so maybe before we get into all of that, let's hear a little bit about you and where your expertise comes from.
Sure. Thanks, Andrew. So I've been in the e-commerce digital marketing space. It's been my daytime job for just about 15 years. Started out in the paintball retail industry for very small mom and pops. That's where they had me kind of take over and launch and kind of optimize their eBay store. And that's where Mr. Bezos actually just started to begin to launch Amazon as a marketplace coming out of the bookstores. So that was coming out of like 2008, 2009. And we saw them. And then just in a few years, obviously, Amazon has exploded. So as I was in there, a few years later, I went to the automotive industry, worked in the automotive industry for just about 7 years doing digital marketing and e-commerce, especially e-commerce. And saw that very similarly, automotive is like board games, very big distribution, big players. Data started transforming where they started keeping track of like car parts, etc. And then started seeing a big shift to there. And that's actually been a very big topic in the automotive industry of late is, the digital transformation there and how things are going to start to survive coming out of that. But then, so I was there, transitioned to actually a large conglomerate that was out of China. They bought a company that a lot of people know over here called Oregon Scientific. But they also had, I think it was like Brookstone was the other like big store. And I forgot that other store that's kind of like all the gadgets.
Sharper Image.
Sharper Image, that's one.
Okay.
I believe they bought Sharper Image and or Brookstone. And basically a big China conglomerate that wanted to kind of put U.S. operations here. And I got to see a lot of Shenzhen manufacturing. That's where I started dipping my toes into there. And then found myself actually in the medical industry just about 7 years ago. And medical industry, kind of the same thing as automotive and what we saw in other places is looking at consumer and e-commerce. So that's where I've been. That's where I am today. Very cool place to be, but I love board games at the end of the day and started applying, some of my knowledge to what I like to do. And then thus we kind of launched Avant Games just a couple of years ago.
That's awesome. And you've already had success for a number of clients. I've heard stories about, actually I've had some personal experience with some of the clients that you have where they couldn't move games that were just sitting in a warehouse. They had 5,000 copies of like the space game or whatever in a warehouse. And they're like, it's not really moving for us. And then all of a sudden you guys come on board and it's like, you're having them reorder units because people are buying it's selling so quick on Amazon. And so I really look forward to diving into this.
And I think another interesting thing, Andrew, if I could just interject, is that I
Yeah.
think in that particular case, 'cause I think I know who you're talking about, is that we ran ads for them on Meta and we weren't able to budge stock. We couldn't able to make sales. So it's interesting how certain games seem to do better on Amazon than they do on crowdfunding or on a sort of personal
Mhm.
e-commerce store. So I'd also like to tap into that. What kind of
Mhm.
games do well on Amazon and why do they do well on Amazon?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
let's jump in there first. Yeah, like what games do well on Amazon and why do they do well on Amazon? How about that?
Um, Very interesting question. So let's maybe talk about the core of Amazon and where it is today. I would say it is majority an unbranded search first market. And what I mean by that is you're not going in there looking for probably, a very big brand name item. And secondly, you are looking for something that fills your keyword. So a very common thing I always like to use is like egg rack in the refrigerator. And so you're going on there and you're going to see hundreds of products that are on there. You're going to basically Amazon's algorithm of when you search for egg rack is it's going to float all the things to the very top, at least organically, of the companies that sell that product at the highest run rate. Now you can obviously purchase ads and things like that to be at the very top, and those are the sponsored ads. But really, like a branded product of somebody like Cuisinart is probably not going to sit up there. It's like some very odd name that's like, I don't know, King Pow egg racks, and they're selling 30,000 units a month today. And it's because they know the algorithm and they know how to kind of work Amazon, and they know what people are looking for. And that's what's there. Why that's sort of a long-winded answer to this is like board games is very similar in that vein. So with board games, a lot of people are, and I would say majority, and majority is not the kind of the core group of board gamers. We have this very large, obviously, billions of people, millions of people looking for board games, and they just look for some things like party games for four, board games for families. Those type of keywords are what people are searching for. And when you're showing those games, you're not seeing a lot of the um, fun games that you would probably recommend to your friends. You're seeing games that are selling, and that's because these companies or brands or sellers know what they're doing in terms of keyword equity and how to kind of merchandise the product. So you'll see like Taco Go Cat Cheese. I love using that example because I think these guys probably move 30,000 units a month. Actually, we're in Q4, so I'm pretty sure that number is highly inflated in the next 2 months here. But I think when I went to their Kickstarter, they raised like $3,000, and that's just not their demographic, and they knew that, right? Like they knew going into there. They probably used crowdfunding, which I would do too, is like to get your name out there in that space of folks that go to crowdfunding. Probably like you, Sean, myself, that would be in a game found or a Kickstarter looking at games. But those people are probably like, yeah, I don't care. And that's why they probably didn't raise that much. But they're killing it on Amazon because they know their keyword equity. They know what they're going to go after. They're probably doing tons of surround sound marketing, meaning like going to TikTok and everything that everybody's on social media, and building their name that's out there. So
Mhm.
that's where I see like a lot of the kind of fun, low weight kind of party family games live. But at the same time, the other place where board games can live in this like light medium weight is you still see things like Wingspan, Splendor. Well, Catan is obviously just from a name is very big, but I think Splendor, Azul are two very good examples of games that can be popular because they're just enough weight there, but they're not too scary, I guess, for the mass demographic that's out there. And then there's this other case where this other group where it's very much branded, and because Amazon is just so good at putting things in front of your doorstep, whether it's in hours or within 2 days, is where you're going to be able to just easily find something like Heat. Heat is a very popular game in the friendly local gaming store, but I think it's on sale today for $50. But even at $80, that game was flying off the shelves on Amazon, and solely because that's a point of availability, and that's branded searches that people are looking for
Yeah.
those games. So kind of like three kind of buckets that I look at on Amazon.
Yeah, I find it very so with my own experience when I had my own game, last year during the holiday shopping season and whatnot, it was very, very important that I was on Amazon just so that it was almost like it almost felt like you know, if you go to a convention and you say we take cash only and you don't take credit cards, you're going to miss sales because you need to take multiple forms of payment. You need to take the most common forms of payment that people will have are likely to have on them. And I had so many conversations with people. Just, you know, we go to the park with my family and my kids are all super excited about our game, and they talk to their friends talk to their parents, and then the parents talk to me and they're like, hey, you know, is it on Amazon? And because that's just a neighborhood parent, random neighborhood parent, they buy everything on Amazon. And if it's not on Amazon, they're not going to buy it. But if because it was, I've made probably about a half a dozen sales just because somebody whipped out their phone, hit the Amazon app, and did a branded search for it and bought it because they are a Prime member and it's just easy and it's like one touch and they're done, and it takes so little thinking, which is what I think is most impressive about Amazon, is how little thought it requires to actually check out. And so I think that that's super valuable for every single person that is looking to sell post Kickstarter. You should have a presence on Amazon. You should own your presence on Amazon, right? Or at least be able to command it. So then let's talk about so the other buckets. You've got people that are searching for gifts and other things like that. Um, if I wanted to, so if I'm brand new and kind of want to get into this for the first time and I'm not really sure how all of it works, I want to ask two lines of thought. One relates to basics that I should know, but then also partners that I should start with. You know, like I found that Amazon is such a big beast that if someone is not familiar enough with the system, it's a very steep learning curve, and you could work for months and not have your product ready to sell because you're missing things and whatnot. But if you find the right partner, it can be a lot easier, you know. And I'd like you to, can you talk toward that, and then later maybe some basics of like what makes a good page, or what, you know, what makes a good listing. But first, let's talk about the partners, because I know that's a service that you guys can potentially offer. So, what do you have to say on that?
Sure. So as I mentioned in my daytime job, I work in medical device that's to consumers, or even sometimes on the hospital side. And in my last few roles, I have brought on agencies, and solely because these agencies work like machines in the Amazon world, and we'll get into like why you would want like a like a well-oiled machine in Amazon, right? And so you definitely can kind of launch your business, but you're going to learn that like right away there's so much to do, whether that is on digital marketing, merchandising, logistics, operations, customer service, manufacturing, all those things. So when you think about all that in a corporate world, that's like business groups, or that is like parts of the business that you would run. So Amazon makes it very easy to set you up as a seller. It'll take minutes. It's like $40 a month, and you got your Amazon Seller Central store, right? And at that point, you're like, cool, I'm now a seller. What you don't like, other things you have to realize is like if you're a brand, which you should be a brand, you have to set up brand registry, which you need a trademark, or at least a filing of a trademark, so that you're a legitimate, brand. And we'll get into like probably the laters of why you would want to do those kinds of things. But yeah, so I use agencies today in my daytime job, and it's because they charge. There are really big agencies, or small agencies, there's overseas agencies, and they have different charges or different menus of things. And really, what is the appetite, or what's the goal at the end of the day for the seller, for yourself? And so for us as Avant, when we put this group together, the first need was, we were just like, wow, like the industry feels very behind. But that's not trying to offend anybody. It's that we're like, we wish people would know about so many of the games that I have in my background, in your background, of like, I would love for people to know that, but they'll never be able to see that unless they walk into a friendly local gaming store, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when we put our group together, myself and another partner like Jacob, we've been in Amazon for a very long time. Chris, who does all our creative designs, which you'll see on our Amazon product pages today, and advertising and things like that. And then David, who knows nothing about e-commerce and Amazon, but he is our like super hardcore board gamer. He backs tons of Kickstarters a year. He tells us about every game that we should know about, and we kind of put together what we thought was like this really cool group that all got along and had the same vision. And so that kind of goes into like what you would maybe want in a partner working with Amazon. And even then, like we love to have conversations with folks who are just like, I love making board games, but I don't want to deal with this. That's probably like the best way to kind of encapsulate that in a quick way. Like
Mhm.
if you want to be a designer and you want somebody to be kind of like your sales and marketing partner, that's kind of where Avant steps in
Yep.
for at least the Amazon and the digital and the e-commerce world that's there. So hopefully I was able to answer that in terms of like what kind of partner, at least like a human partner that you would want today on
Yeah.
Amazon.
So, Henry, in terms of driving sales on Amazon, what have you found to be the most cost-effective avenues for advertising? Is it Google ads? Is it just like Amazon ads on the platform itself? Where do you find the best return on ad spend?
Yeah, Amazon is always going to be, I would say, majority or 90% of the time, Amazon is going to be your best ROI. And because Amazon is a very bottom funnel machine, everybody is there ready to hit the buy button. We do Google, search and social ads. We're starting to play around with TikTok Shop and using TikTok as well as kind of a driver to Amazon. The problem with Amazon is that they are still very tight on data and the way that flows. As you know, and hopefully I'm not getting too tech nerdy here, but like, as you have a .com store, like with Shopify, you basically make connections to like search and social. And so when that like when somebody sees an ad, they engage with it, they buy something, all those like signals go back and forth so that you can optimize. On
Mhm.
Amazon, they kind of do that in their ads, not very well, but they do it enough. But they actually kind of almost close that off completely to the outside world. Today they have attribution links, so you can kind of do some like analysis. Like you can build a link within Amazon, and that attribution link you can use to like a social ad. But Amazon won't tell you like specifically like when
Mhm.
that's sold or how that's sold or add to carts or things like that. So like you can't optimize truly if a campaign is running. And we've done that, and we saw like good numbers. And when I say good numbers is I just look at everything as like a bucket of spend to a bucket of like conversion. But I can't like really go back and like
Mhm.
define like if my creative A/B testing was like going really well, right? So
Yep.
those are the things where like Amazon, they do it purposely, and they try to keep you within the machine, but at the same time, the mentality of folks on Amazon, and I want to say majority of especially prime shoppers, is like you're always going to buy everything on the very top of page above the fold. If you're going to scroll down, it's usually page one is still the money of where you want to be. And because sponsored ads could be always at the very top of everybody else along with branded banner ads and things like that, that's why the ROI is so good. Because if you do it right and you start to actually build keyword equity, you kind of get discounted, right? Just like Google, like
Mhm.
authority of content. And so same thing with Amazon is like at the very beginning, it's going to be a little bit costly, but as you start to prove to them like you are like best board game for teenagers, as we kind of got into, like you start to really go at the top and it starts to become really cheap, and then your ROI just starts exploding at that point, like
Mhm.
really good in terms of ROAS. So there.
That's
So
interesting.
it's still where you want to be. I hope that they start to open up, the walls so that we could really test, because we got a lot of really good engagement from social, from Meta, right? But again, lots of good engagement, comments, thumbs up. But at the end of the day, I couldn't exactly say if those people who are commenting or thumbs up were buying the product at the
Right.
end of the day, right? So
I heard something that this was a long time ago. This is, I want to say around like 2015 or so, when I was working on Amazon. And I found that by sending lots of, we'll call it low unqualified traffic to your Amazon store, that can actually, so let's say I run on Google ads for a particular product and Facebook, and I just send lots and lots of people to Amazon. That doesn't necessarily, and let's just say the normal amount of people that go from Amazon to your product and buy it is 5% of the people that look at your page buy. Well, if a 0.5% of the traffic that you send from Facebook and Google buy, and you're sending, several thousand people a month, that can actually hurt your ranking more than help. Is that true? Is there, so you know what I'm kind of trying to get at, or is that off base?
I couldn't exactly tell you because I wish I would know. I mean, if you send more folks to your PDP, your product page, and it's from off traffic, Amazon, from what I know or have been told, and that's even like kind of inside folks too that work there, is they actually like that.
Okay.
Amazon likes that you are using off platform, right? So anything outside of Amazon to drive traffic in. Now, you should be driving traffic to your product page or to your branded store. And they do, from what I hear, kind of give you bumps to that. When I was talking about the ads, that's what I was saying. Like, you can build an attribution link. So let's say like Deliverance,
Mhm.
you had the ASIN for that, and you can go into Amazon's advertising. You can say, I want to go to this platform. They let you choose. So there's like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And they'll give you a link that has like, the UTM slugs in there. And then you can use that link within your campaigns.
Mhm.
So your like meta campaigns would drive folks into there. From what I'm told, like Amazon is loving that right now because it's free
Okay.
traffic, right? That's coming in. And that's why they also give you a 10% kind of commission bonus if you get a conversion in that link, because you're telling them that I use like Meta to
Mhm.
drive folks into there and they bought on Amazon. And
Oh,
so,
that's cool. So that helps a little bit with your ad spend and everything too.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. And I mean, I don't know how much detail we want to get into, but like folks are starting to test, which we're doing. Like, you can use something like an unbounce to create a landing page in which you can then use that page for your campaign, right? Like for your meta campaigns. But then the buy through link would go through like Amazon as like a different attribution link. So now you kind of got two signals going on, right? You got the
Mhm.
signal of like social ads going to landing page, which we know is like great to optimize.
Mhm.
And then you kind of can see like that other button that now goes to Amazon, because now
Mhm.
you can kind of track the two. Like, I hit the like I want to go learn more about that product or buy the product.
That's
So
awesome.
different ways that you can kind of test that and run like even affiliate links to it to like some folks are working with affiliates to kind of even get a little bit of a bonus commission bump there.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that we found to be very standard. So when we started running Kickstarter campaigns back in, I guess, 2020 and then 2021, what we used to do is when we would have a campaign going from like pre-launch to actually live, we would just transition ads from a landing page that we built to capture emails to the actual Kickstarter page. And it was very difficult to track what was happening and that sort of thing. And then we started to test sending that traffic, even when the campaign was live, to a landing page first, and then to the Kickstarter page after that, using a button that had like a Kickstarter referral link. So they would go to the landing page, instead of subscribe for email updates, it's, check out the Kickstarter, and they click that button. That's the button that's tracked on Kickstarter. So Facebook tells me how many people clicked the button, and I'm able to optimize in Facebook ads for how many of those desirable actions happened. But then I'm able to then see how many buyers are buying, or I have a better, more reliable understanding of how many people actually came in from my Facebook ad campaigns to buy the product, and or to back the product on Kickstarter. And it helps to kind of optimize. And so that seems like a very similar theme with Amazon, where if you are used to doing that, and used to doing that kind of what we call the virtuous cycle type system, you can use Amazon, or you can use that strategy with Amazon, which is really exciting.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. Kind of like a step process that's
Mhm.
going into there.
Yeah.
So Henry, how important is the featured offer percentage? That's a metric that I've heard from the grapevine. There's a pretty important metric to optimize. Maybe you could talk about that and any other things that should be thought of in terms of optimization. I'm sure the title, headline, and images are super important to optimize. So if you could give people some tips, and maybe some of the, if they are in the back end, what things should they be trying to optimize, and what are some of the ways they can improve their listings?
Yeah, yeah. So let's start with content before we get to price, if you don't mind. So let's start with content there. So yeah, Amazon is obviously keyword driven. So that means that keywords are very important on Amazon, and what are search intent? So like, what are people or keyword searches that people are looking for? But then obviously that has to be relevant to your product. And so when we're talking about keywords and I talk about content and copy, we're just going to talk about the Amazon product page, right? The actual PDP itself. So you got the title, and that is the most important about the product, because that is to Amazon tells them about, like, I would probably say 70% of how relevant your product is to folks that search for it.
Mhm.
So you got the title, and then you have the 5 bullet points, which are kind of the quick hits. I would say that is like the second piece that's most important to keyword or copywriting, that's there. And then there is the long description, but the long description actually, you create it, but once you start to build out A plus content modules, it actually gets rid of the long description, at least publicly facing, and then it builds out the modules, that overlay on top of it. Now, Amazon's machine is always scraping, for keywords and how relevant those keywords are to your product. There's other tools I can talk about in this discussion of what you can use to kind of keyword track your equity of like keyword to your product. Everybody knows Helium 10. It's probably the most famous tool out there, but it's a great tool to kind of look at things like that, whether it's yourself or even your competitors or you versus the competitor, right? So going back to the title, that's where it's most important. So obviously, you have to start with what is your product and what is your brand. I forgot what the exact thing is called. I want to say it's called the A9 algorithm. Basically, it's Amazon's algorithm that goes from left to right of of the title, and most important to Amazon is the leftmost of the title. So it's like that first left chunk, and then middle, and then the last part. And so as your keywords are kind of like, some people stuff keywords, right? They throw it at the end of it, and it's because it's kind of important, but it's not as important. But what you really want is like probably those first 10 to 15 words that are there. So it would be like, low end games deliverance, and then you probably want to do like a colon, or a dash, and then it's like, and then what is that game? Like, why are people looking for that game? And
Mhm.
it might just be like, I'm not sure, religious angels, miniature war game. I'm
Mhm.
sorry, Andrew, if
Yeah, no,
I'm
actually, I did a bunch of work, and I actually think we talked about this a little bit at the time when I was fiddling, but I can't remember. But I did Deliverance board game dash cooperative adventure game for adults and family game nights, comma Command Legendary Angels, and they did age 14 plus, 1 to 4 players, 1 to 2 hour playtime, an epic Christian gift by Low End Games. That's how I ended up doing it, and then I don't know if that's the best way to do it, but
No, I mean, it's much better than what we see majority out there that might be like Deliverance board game, right? And then if I'd
yeah,
say like, I don't know,
yeah,
family game or cooperative game, right? And so actually, it sounded like you did a little bit of homework, right, when you built out your
mhm,
title. And yeah, so there's a chicken and egg to this, which is, what do you think your game is relevant for? And then you use a tool like Helium 10 to search for that keyword, and they will actually like show you the branches or the offshoots of that keyword. You can even go as high as like kind of level as like a board game general keyword search. But you don't want to get into obviously just being like a board game, right? You want to
mhm,
be specific, and it's cooperative, or it's a miniature, or it's for family game night. So those are the things that you do want to consider when you're writing your keywords that are there.
mhm,
Amazon is obviously, as we get into, and we're in this whole AI world, is Amazon definitely likes keywords or titles that sounds like you're talking about something, and it's not just fragmented keywords. So
yeah,
putting like, like board game and then dot, then like family game dot, 2 to 4 players dot, like that's
mhm,
no bueno. You want to be able to write it where you're kind of like speaking to somebody, like you even said, it's like it's a cooperative board games, with miniatures. So
mhm,
saying those kinds of things, is very helpful. But again, the most important part of this is are you going after branded, meaning like are people searching for the game because they're searching for you, like the publisher and the game title, or are you going after like search words that people are going after or unbranded searches, right? And so one of our most successful case study that we have, No Escape, that was unbranded because people just were not looking for or Open Owl, No Escape, but people were searching for like, party game, family game night, like you did, board games for teenagers, those kinds of things we started to like kind of strategically attack. And as we built equity and we started to build momentum, that's where we were rewarded for all those things. And what you can do on Amazon too today is if you have brand, you can run A/B testing constantly on your titles. And you can do it for other things, but like title is one thing where people are always kind of going after to kind of test to see if like the market starts to react of like you testing different search words. So you might want to go after something else, Andrew, with Deliverance, that's a little bit different than cooperative board game or whatnot.
Yeah. So on that topic, so let's say I take my game. So Deliverance board game I put together because Deliverance is the game's name. And by the way, I did something that and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. So there are a couple of other games that I used as kind of some inspiration, and that were similar to mine. So like Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle Earth, Elder Scrolls Skyrim by Modiphius, and some other games that were somewhat related. I took like 5 or 6 of those games that were selling very well on Amazon. Was one of my critical thing, like, do these games sell 500 copies a month or more? And then I'm like, okay, if they do, then maybe I should pay attention to them. And then they're kind of in the same niche, they've got miniatures in them and similar price points and stuff like that. And I looked at what they did. So the Deliverance board game, a lot of other games were like, the name of the game was first. Sometimes they would use like the company's name, like Ezra and Nehemiah is Renegade Game Studios Ezra and Nehemiah, but a lot of companies were like, give me the name of the game, tell me it's a board game, and then dash the most critical elements. It's cooperative adventure was really popular. Adults and family game nights were really popular. Adults and family games, adult game for adults and family game nights was something that I did on purpose. But so I'm curious to see, like, if I were to, let's just say, there are tons of games like this, and now maybe I need to go into like a deep niche and not try to sell to, for adult and family game nights or a cooperative adventure game that there's a lot of competition there. What if I just go into like something that has fewer searches, like Epic, Christian, this or that? Is that, how quickly will I know if something like that is working? If I
Really
change
good
the type.
question. Yeah, and so this is the key core concepts to Amazon. Like not even in board games, as Amazon is a very large private label, like I was saying, unbranded, and people kind of just go outside to, especially like China, to like build product. Folks use Helium 10 as their Bible because Helium 10 is the best keyword Amazon tool that is out there today. And so when you go to that, you'll see that all their tools are built around keywords and different ways you can look at keywords. Now, when you look at something like Christian board games, and I'm just guessing here, there's probably not a whole lot of searches there.
Right.
But what Helium 10 will tell you, how much is that search per month? How much is an estimated sales of that keyword? So let's say Christian board games per month. And then what is the competition to those folks who are either have SEO equity into the keyword, or they're actually running ads against it. And then kind of taking all that, they give you a score of what they think is like the competition for you to get into there. Like, should you do it? Yeah. And so sometimes that's great because let's just say it's only 500 searches a month and there's only like 5 sales a month, right? And you might be like, okay, that's like, okay. But it'll also tell you how many sales you need to get in a month to actually be the number one of that keyword search string. So Christian board games, let's just say it's only 500. I would probably guess it only would take me 8 sales that month to get to the very top of page 1 and to start to dominate at the very top. And I could go after that. you can have that in your kind of like equity. And Amazon kind of gives you that award, if you will, or that badge. And then
Mhm.
you can keep going and conquesting more keywords to
Mhm.
build into your equity. So you can be the one for that. And
Mhm.
um, now, when you're asking me, like, is that worth it?
Mhm.
It might not be worth that at the very beginning, right? But what you could be doing is, if this is a very big game that you think has tons of potential and legs on, you can be doing tons of off platform, like going to
Mhm.
TikTok and making some really cool videos and inserting things like Christian board games as a very explicit kind of call out.
Mhm.
And then as people get to Amazon, they start to search that. And then now you can keep track of, like, are the keyword searches starting to go up? That means
Okay.
probably in parallel, sales are going up. Hey, you invested in being the number one Christian board game like 6 months ago, and now it's paying dividends because like people are searching for Christian board games on Amazon.
Okay. So then one small follow-up question. So let's say so you use this term keyword equity. I'd love if you wouldn't mind defining that term, but my question is, if I were to, let's say, go all in on this Christian board game as just a concept, it's very, very low competition compared to anything else. It kind of sidesteps all the competitors, but as you pointed out, it's going to sidestep, let's just say, 99.9% of all the searches for board games. But then if I can be like the best option, I can actually start to make sales. So I go all in. I'm like, Deliverance board game, cooperative Christian adventure game, or whatever. So Christian board game, it's like number one now. So I because I make 8 sales a month. Then I'm like, all right, I have this equity. Amazon's like, all right, this is the number one suggested product. I get a little badge that says, this is like the thing. Um, so I then decide I'm going to change my title from Deliverance, cooperative Christian board game or whatever. I'm going to change it to cooperative adventure game for adults and families. Um, will I retain that keyword equity, or let's just say I kind of stuff that Christian, keywords like way down, not even in the title anymore? Will I continue to keep that equity that I earned because I sold a lot of stuff with that phrase? Does Amazon remember that way?
Yeah, so yes and no. So if it is a very major part of your sales, it should always be in your title because
Mhm.
Amazon will continue to award you that equity. Now, if you remove that completely from your title, but people are still searching for Amazon board game, and because like in the last 30 days you've sold, let's say 100 units, and you remove it completely from your title, right? And now you're doing that, and hopefully you're A/B testing, so you're not
Mhm.
completely removing it from your title. So you completely go away from it and you just go to like miniature battle game, right? And
Mhm.
that's what you're going after now. As you continue to sell, if you're continuing to sell because of your last 30-day historical, you're going to continue to sell, right?
Okay.
And that also goes into like why a board game like like I'm not sure, but like Catan is like a very branded short like thing. I don't know if it is, but I'm just giving an example. If it was just Catan board game, and people are searching for other things, they have huge equity list, right?
Mhm.
Just because it says Catan board game doesn't mean that Amazon's not giving them that equity. It still is.
Okay.
You retain it, right? But it's harder because if you are not a big brand name and people don't know exactly what they want when they're searching Christian board game, you will start to lose that equity, right?
Okay.
And then we haven't even got into like as you start to like build momentum for something like Christian board game, you're gonna be on my radar because I'm gonna start to see in my helium, oh, there's this game called Deliverance that's shooting the rankings on Amazon, and they're shooting because Christian board games won. And you're probably going to start to see competition in there. Then people are going
Yep.
to start to come out of the woodworks and start going after creating products
Mhm.
because you created this momentum of Christian board games, and people are
Like
now going
the
to try to attach themselves at the hip of that keyword
yep.
search and
like
build from.
like the Jesus Christ Ouija board and
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
other
whatever they
competitors
want to
doing the
do at
same
the time.
thing.
But exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So, to recap what you shared with us, number one thing, title has to be the most focused segment. It should have some relevance to, let's say, if I were to speak it to somebody, it should make some semblance of sense. I see a lot of the time, putting things like the age, player count, playtime, and certainly the type of game. And then there are certain things like I've seen clever keyword stuffing. Game for adults is a really popular one. Family game for families, family game nights, adult game nights, stuff like that, game for, et cetera. The word cooperative is important if it's cooperative. And so certain things like that are very essential. And would you recommend to study close competitors that are successful and emulate them, or where would you differ?
I would say to study close competitors, and not even competitors, but people that are doing it right today on the Amazon and a board game space. We talk a lot about underdog games. These guys continue to impress us because these guys are ahead of the curve. And they continue to sell a lot of products, especially their trekking series. But they do a lot of things that we see outside of Amazon that are kind of like the ABCs of that. But not only that, just in Amazon, they get it, and we see it, and we are, hats off, and we continue to clap our hands and looking at different things they're doing, especially outside, like on the Kickstarter space, right, or crowdfunding space. Take a look at them. They do a great job in what they do. Their A plus content is beautiful. The way they write their keywords is good. And I want to say they're very close to being like, a very good Amazon seller just outside of board games. Where I would say to be careful when you say competitors too is we've also learned that why Avant was created of like the big guys aren't exactly doing it right either. So, a lot of these board games, just taking a look at it, yes, it's like title of the board game, then like relevant things to the board game, and then kind of throwing some things into there. And it's very templated. The way you go into writing titles, it should never be templated, right? There shouldn't be like fill this in and then like that's what you use. It always has to do with the keywords that you want to go after and how relevant they are, but also what you want your product to start to rank for, right? And as we discussed, a really good thing I heard way back when is on Amazon, keywords are for robots and visuals or pictures are for humans. And that is 150% accurate. Build the keywords because you want people to click on your item, and then the pictures and the A plus content will sell the product at the end of the day. Nobody reads, not a lot of people read any more bullet points, but people want to go to A plus content if it's especially like a medium or heavier game, because then they want to learn more about the game. But that's, A plus con is always about education, right? And so those are the things to go after or to go into with content as well. But in terms of just keywords, at the first point, I go back, write the keywords for robots. It's the Amazon robot that's paying attention. And then once you do a good job, you get them to the click through, then we can go into creative. And that's a whole other world that we have to talk about. And then Sean also asked about price and things like that, which is another strategy.
All right, so then let's move into customer facing. I mean, there are so many other elements that we could talk about in regard to clever ways to stuff keywords into your content. Like you mentioned, the bullet points. That was something that I thought was really important. I have probably too many bullet points in mine, but it feels like as a consumer, and I think this is really important to step back and say, how do you behave as a consumer on Amazon? It is helpful to look at that. Now, I never read the bullet points. I'm always looking at the title, and then I go to pictures right away. I need to make sure that it's a good fit for what I searched for, so the title really matters. But the picture is like, really, as long as I know it's the right thing, the picture is the number one thing to me that gets me to say, I will click on this, or I will examine further.
As far as I know, you always have to have a white background on the picture, right? You can't really get creative and do wild stuff, or can you? Or what's the sort of rules around?
That used to be that was the old rules.
Okay.
And have a if you can pull up the No Escape board game on Amazon, our hero image. This is one thing we tested and it's paid off, I think, for us big time. But you'll see the hero image is not a white background. We did this and we're starting to be flattered with folks who are trying to copy the way that we kind of did this. But we pulled this from other verticals that we work in, and we just learned that again. The hero is most important for click through rate. It's not most important for conversion, but it's most important for click through rate. But yeah, you can start to test, and sellers continue to test Amazon's kind of scraping robot or whatever they're doing to check these images. And people are just filling in as much space as possible now. You do not want to leave any more negative white spaces there.
Gotcha. And I think there might be specific rules for clothing where it's like don't put a lamp in the image of the pair of pants, because consumers will think that the lamp comes with the pants.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely. I would say so, and it's crazy because we talk about AI, but like Amazon's backend is definitely using AI, and so we haven't even we're going to talk about images, but they're able to like scrape flat images with text now to give keyword equity as well. Like that goes into A plus content and your carousel. It's able to tell like the words that are inside the images now and give you equity based on that as well.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I think that the image for No Escape is really great because it's got the box and it has the game laid out, which I think is really valuable to just show people what it is right away. I
Yeah.
think that is definitely doing something better than like what I'm doing, for example, what I did with my product. I think that it just immediately shows, you know, would you like this game if and so I guess I mean we could go into just take a little bit of a pit stop right there at No Escape. Like, why did this become successful? It's sold like over 1,000 games in the last month, just probably sitting there and because of what you guys have done already. And then of course now that we're in the holiday shopping season, that's going to jump significantly. Um, I'm curious as to like what what made this go from zero to hero.
Yeah, and it really went from zero to just give a historical of this. We work with Open Owl Studios. We actually first met them because of Stars of Acarios, which we took to Amazon for them, and then they came to us and said, "Hey, we had like a lot of units sitting, and we haven't been able to move them." We took a look at it, and some sold on Amazon before, and then so we jumped in and basically brought it back to life. And then what we really liked is that it's a 2 to 8 player game, outside of the norm of the 2 to 4 player game,
Mhm.
right? That's kind of like most of where board games sit. Before we even took this game into for Amazon for us, we actually played it and we loved it as well. Because that's the other thing with Amazon is like I can bring I can almost bring any product to the top of certain things if there's enough money that's invested. But what makes that product successful is now the payoff to natural sales, right? Because of all that investment of like your organic sales that start to take off. And organic sales is because you actually have a good product, right? And so we actually loved the board game when we played it. Why it has taken off for us is when we did this and when I went in, I took a look at like the advertising space. I took a look at the keywords and where all the competitors were in. And we kind of did that. We kind of attached ourselves at the hip to some of the games that were already popular. Started to you can advertise basically when if you think like your game is relevant to like Catan, you can be relevant as an ad to Catan. We started doing that, and then we did a little bit of back end work where you're kind of like pushing certain keywords that are going through the sales. Like there are ways strategically in campaigns that you can push the game through just certain keywords, whether that is ads or off platform advertising as well. And then we also had a pretty cool video that they gave to us. So we started running meta ads as well. So we started going really big on off platform because we had an inkling that this game was going to do really well for us. So we chipped at it at the beginning of the year. We were kind of like, okay, like there's a couple hundred units selling per month, which to some folks might be a success already, but to us, that's not success yet for us, right? We wanted to get to several hundreds, or like here we are at 1,000. And then the first Prime Day came. The first Prime Day came, I want to say it was July, if my memory serves me right, because Amazon did 2 Prime Days this year, in July and October. And like the like I remember, I think it was what, like 2 days of Prime, we sold like 600 units in 2 days. And we were like, wow, like people really do like this game. Like people were really waiting to see if like the game was going to go on sale, and it did. And we Amazon also gives you, sorry to kind of like throw in stuff, but like Amazon also only gives you certain like campaign vehicles or advertising vehicles if your product only does a certain amount of units. That's what you have to build up as well, right? So for us to be able to, right now we're participating in the Black Friday week. I don't know if you guys have seen, but
Yeah.
they started Black Friday like a week ago and it's going to run till Cyber Monday.
Yep.
So like to be part of that, your game had to have X amount of run rate. Like we have all these other
Okay.
games, they weren't eligible. It was only No Escape that was eligible for us on
Mhm.
this one. But yeah, that last Prime Day like took off. So then that started to build you up in terms of like where you sit on Amazon's what they call the BSR, their bestseller rank. And then when you sit at that place, that's when like your natural sales start to take off. Then you keep running ads, which we do. So ads build a baseline, right? Where are people at? Like start to get conversions. Then your organic sales start to follow with the ad sales. And then as you just continue to climb the ranks and start to move up in different parts of keywords that you're going for, or just even in board games, like we advertise in just general family board games, strategy board games, board games for kids, board games for teenagers. Those are expensive to bid in, but we were seeing conversion. So we would continue chipping away at that, right? And so we did that. That first Prime Day kind of shot us to the next kind of like planet for us. And then the last Prime Day that was, I think, in October. I'm kind of upset at myself because I only slotted like I forgot it was like 1,000 units or something for the 2 days of Prime, but we sold through all of it in 2 days. I think we sold like 1,000 units in 2 days of October's Prime Day sales. So it like these like big sale events are really big for us. And now today we are selling a very significant amount in this, and I'm afraid to see Black Friday weekend or Turkey 5 from Black Friday to Cyber Monday, because we're probably going to get very close to running out of product very, very soon. But you can kind of see that, like, at a high level strategy is, if you're starting as a new board game, is learn what you're going after, start to advertise for it. It's like a stairway. Get to the next stairway, like continue at it. If you think you got some product, then be ready for big events. Like be ready for Prime Day. Be ready for all these big events, because that's where like you jump 10 steps when you participate properly in these. And then you just keep that going. And then Q4 is where you can just kind of sit back and kind of watch a lot of sales come in naturally. And then you start all over again when you get to the beginning of the year.
That's awesome. I'm there are so many questions I want to ask, but it's like which direction do I go? Um, so let's talk. So I guess to liken things to something that I understand, SEO on Google. So when you want to rank at the top of Google, what you the content is important. Are you a plumber? Are you a board game business, etc.? Right? Google will rank similar things. But then when you're okay, I'm a board game, and you have 100,000 different websites that say they're board games, and which websites does Google rank at the top? It's like, well, the most relevant, yes, but there's something called domain authority that certain websites use that will generally determine how trustworthy is the information on a website. So if Microsoft creates a board game division, then it will quickly rank at the top of Google if it's Microsoft.com/board game division or whatever. You're going to see that search at the top of Google a lot quicker and easier, because Microsoft has built all of this trust and authority and whatnot through, nerd. I don't want to go too nerdy on this one, but Microsoft versus a brand new website that just starts out that nobody knows. So Amazon, it sounds like, does a little bit of the same, where it's like, when you're brand new and you do put in the correct keywords and, in your titles and whatnot, it doesn't mean that you're going to sell a bunch of stuff, but you build towards stuff. And then Amazon kind of tracks what it is that you're doing, tracks your sales, and assigns you, in essence, well, in Google terms, it's like a quality score to your website and or to your products. And as they sell more stuff, it seems that the things that are in the titles have more weight to them. So when I say it's a family board game, and you say it's a family board game because you sell 1,000 more units a month than I do, what your family board game is going to get more weight on your listing than it would mine. Is that correct? Is that kind of how it works?
Yes, that's 100% correct. So yeah, as you know, my other life is dealing with, as you know, like SEO and .com and Shopify sites and things like that. It is a completely different game, right? Sorry, no pun intended there, but it is a completely different place, strategically speaking, right? So like when I go back to my agencies and I ask them, well, if I'm like getting a bunch of conversions running for this like keyword search on Google, for my product, like, does that give me like equity or domain authority to Google? And I've been kind of told, like, not really. But on Amazon, it's completely opposite. If I continue to spend and spend and spend for like family board game, and I keep getting conversions on it, and then I build my organic ranking to family board games, and then because that's also like converting, that's where you start to shoot up. And that game might not be a family board game at all. But Amazon unfortunately doesn't care. They care that like you are a family board game when people search for it, they buy it. And if your return rates are not like high, I think their return rates are it's something like 2.5%, or I forgot what their number is, but they start to also tell you, hey, you're getting a lot of returns, by the way, as well. Or they start to see like customer complaints. That's the other one. But the other thing too is like everybody's all about about the star rating as well. So that's the other thing that's indicative of like buying family board games, because if you're relevant, they're going to probably leave you that 5 stars. If you're irrelevant, you're going to get a 1-star review because they're like, I bought this because it said it's the #1 family board game on Amazon. It is not a family board game. Here's your 1 star. And that will just destroy your listing ranking at that moment. So Amazon doesn't do it. I would say this kind of like domain authority or product authority on Amazon is more driven by customer feedback and customer engagement, rather than like Amazon making that decision.
Yeah. So, Deliverance being a very weighty dungeon crawl, it's a 6-inch tall box almost. It's like over 5 inches tall. And I remember having a return or very few out of about 150 sales, a few returns because the box intimidated the person who bought it. And they were like, oh, I don't even want to dive into this. I'm too scared. And so maybe it's not a family board game, and I shouldn't go after that just because if I want to get a high star value and want to maintain that positive level of customer interaction. I mean, strategy board game and other things like that make it sound more chonky and whatnot. Maybe that's a better fit for the long term health of this particular product, based on what you're saying. So that's good feedback.
Yeah, very much so. Even to that, like I told you, we did Stars of Acarios, and I compare that to Deliverance. It's a chunky game. It's high priced, lots of miniatures. It's not for your friendly board game group that comes over that doesn't play board games, right? It's like my wife. No way, don't put a Deliverance or a Stars of Acarios in front of her. She loves Dominion and Azul, but yeah, outside of that, like no way. But when you go into content, we kind of like highlighted that, but it also is very important to set expectations, doing it in a marketing manner on Amazon. And what I mean by that is like we're always talking at Avant, like how do we build these things out of the box or outside the box when thinking, but how do we do that so like customers on Amazon will want to buy the product, but at the same time expect no surprises. And so Stars of Icaria is a very heavyweight game, just I'm sure like Deliverance, any kind of like dungeon crawler miniature game, you'll see that in our A+ content. Like we started to put things like BGG weight score, like what are the different mechanics that are in the game and how many pieces and cards and components there are, because people should expect that when they unbox it. Now, you and I, Sean, when we unbox it, we're like, oh yes, like look at all this stuff. But like, imagine somebody who hasn't played many board games open something like that. It's overwhelming, and Amazon just makes it too easy for them to hit the return button and send that right back, and you probably got a lost or destroyed product that's going to happen at that point. So from a business standpoint, you want to do it right, you want to merchandise right, you want to set expectations, make it as clear as possible, to know what they're getting to there, and hope, and if it's a good game, they're going to love it, they're going to keep it, and they're going to praise about it.
So Henry, I know Amazon offers a lot of additional services, like they've got fulfillment and warehousing and all these other things. Are there any pitfalls or traps for people? Does Amazon offer anything that should really just be avoided? Like I know you spoke very positively of Amazon, but is there anything where maybe people should just be cautious, or they should, or maybe there's something that's just there's a must-have? You must get this Amazon service. Or maybe if you want to talk a little bit about the kind of the things outside of the actual store itself that Amazon offers, and should people jump on them or should they avoid them?
Yeah, well, disclaimer is, while I speak a lot about Amazon, it's because it's the 10,000 pound gorilla that's there, and we have to work in it. But it is a lot of times the bane of our lack of sleep every night, because it's very difficult. Things like that folks should just know off the bat is a lot of costs that's involved that destroy brands and businesses. Amazon takes anywhere from 15 to 18% of the sale, of every sale that goes through. There's cost to like store your products. If you stay too long, then there's more storage fees that they charge you for. Advertising is much more expensive than doing like Meta and or doing search and social, especially from a CPM modeling. They're very much more expensive. That's there. Um, you got to do Prime, or known as FBA, fulfilled by Amazon. So that means that you got to be able to take your product, send it to one of their warehouses. That is very many in the US here. And that's how it gets the Prime badge. And people a lot of people knew are like, wait, I just want to ship it from my warehouse or my garage. Like, why can't I? You can. But I will tell you, if I switched No Escape from a Prime game or an FBA game to what's known as FBM, fulfilled by merchant, meaning you ship it from your own place or warehouse, you're you're probably going to get like 10 to 20% of the sales that you would having a Prime badge on it, because the Prime badge means they get that with probably 2 days or less, and they get the awesome Prime customer service of easy returns and etc. And that's why you want to be in their warehouses with the Prime badge. But when you're asking that, that's one thing that you got to be ready for with that. So there's fees, there's advertising, there is the ability to ship into their warehouses. It's a day-to-day job that you're in Amazon Seller Central handling messages. When you're shipping product into their warehouses, you can imagine there's probably billions of products going in. So you got to check like shortages, all kinds of things. In the board game world, we also got good lessons, but we're pretty good at it now, is their children's product certificates and testing that's needed to be done especially from China. Those are really, really big, because we've even seen big manufacturers get products completely delisted because they don't have CPC testing and whatnot. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot that's there if you can do it. But from kind of like, what you should do and what you should avoid is you should do FBA. You should do some advertising. You got to do advertising.
How much is the CPM? I know you mentioned that the CPM is quite high. Could you just give people like a ballpark of what? Because on Facebook or Meta, we tend to say anything between $5 and $20 is sort of where you'll be sitting on the CPM. So what kind of CPM would you expect on something like Amazon?
I have to check the display for the CPM, and I have to revisit. It's on the higher side, but I would say let's even get down to cost per click, right?
Okay.
Like let's use a little bit more finite that's there. So like on Meta, we saw cost per click for No Escape and other games that we advertise as low as like 15 cents. We saw as high as like 75 cents, right? On Amazon, if you kind of run their like autopilot ads, sure, you'll probably get like 50 cents, right? But like really, when you have a good product going for like party game or party board game, sometimes I will pay $2.50 to $3 for a click to conversion for something like that. So you can see it's a times 5 of something that's there. Yeah, they'll always say that the auto campaigns are pretty cheap and cost efficient, but really that's to kind of test. And once you start to mine the keywords that are converting from there and start to go after that very specific exact match, that's where it starts to get really expensive, because you're going up against the other big boys that are trying to that are doing it right and know what they're doing.
One other thing that I noticed was, so I originally, when it was like we released our game in, I think we finally got on Amazon in November of last year, and I'm like, well, I need to advertise, because now we're coming into Black Friday and Cyber Monday and all of that, and the and so I'm like, I advertise on Facebook, I advertise on Board Game Geek, I advertised on Amazon, because Amazon is, our product is there and all that. And I noticed the only sales, and I did one of those auto campaigns. I noticed we were selling a lot. I want to say we sold through about 2,000 units. I made a whole print run was 5,000. I put about 2,500 units were what backers received. So I had 2,500 units to sell. It was a $100 game, so it's pretty pricey. But I sold through about 2,000 of them in that 2-month period. And there were a couple of things that I noticed. The first one is Amazon ads were highly ineffective because and this is my guess. I had no reviews at all of my product on Amazon. And so all of the purchases that were being made as I looked, they were all branded terms. Everything was like Deliverance board game, Deliverance cooperative board game, Deliverance angel game, that kind of thing. Everything had the word Deliverance in it. And so I turned off the ads and I saw no difference in the sales. It was like, well, why pay for what I would receive anyway, with a branded phrase. And and then as I reflected on it, I'm like, well, as a customer of Amazon, I would never buy something that had no reviews. I don't care if it's sponsored or not, right?
Yeah.
Is there any other thing that could have potentially been in my way, you know what I mean, as like a new seller?
No, yeah, you brought up a very good part, which is a go-to-market strategy, and we've been talking about kind of like established products, but you actually brought up the biggest hurdle or why products fail or companies fail is the go-to-market strategy. When I talk about ads, is like assuming the product's already been set up with some reviews, right? You actually just brought up something that's most important. With this is when you create a brand new product, there are some things. So some folks have almost confirmed that there's something called the honeymoon period. It's basically on Amazon for 2 to 3 weeks. Amazon gives you like an extra limelight on your product, and they're paying attention to paying attention to what people are searching for when they're buying your product, whether it's ads from keywords or just natural or branded. And that's where they start to give you a lot more. I like to use the word equity, but they kind of give you extra equity when you convert onto that. What you were just saying is like one of the things what we always advise is always do Amazon's Vine program when you first launch. Yes, you're giving away products to 20, 30 folks, but at least half of those folks are going to probably leave good reviews. Most of the time, they leave very favorable reviews. And it's within Amazon's terms of service. We can have a whole nother conversation if you guys want to bring me back about the black hat tactics of what like big Chinese brands do and how they get like 1,000 ratings in less than 2 months at 5 stars. But that's a whole other conversation. Vine is within Amazon's terms of service. The other thing you should probably be doing is hitting up your friends and family and saying, hey, like I just launched a game on Amazon. I'd really appreciate it if you guys would buy it and support my product.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really do love it, leave some reviews. Now you're starting to build the reviews that are there, right? That's part of the go-to-market strategy. There's other ways that you can kind of do this too. Again, this is where kind of sometimes off-platform might help, like going to a TikTok or social and driving a lot of awareness there so that people will come in and buy it, and they'll start to probably leave reviews that are there. Or if you got a .com site, send out an email blast to your followers because those people really like your game. Say, hey, like come support us on Amazon. We'd really appreciate it, blah, blah, blah. So yes, going back to what you were saying, that's part of the go-to-market strategy is you got to get your reviews up because people will not buy something on Amazon without reviews. And your ads should not, sorry, I should have said that, but your ads should not launch until you have, at least a few, 4.5, 4.6 to 5-star ratings that you're there for ads.
Awesome. I have another question, and this will be my last question, which is related to the price and the offer and whatnot. So, is there like an ideal range of like a dollar range? Let's say board game industry specific. Is the dollar range? So, if a product is under $50, or like under 100 or under 150, that kind of thing. Are those benchmarks like you would see in a retail establishment? Are those meaningful on Amazon, or is it more about like the deal? You know what I mean? Like 28% off and that kind of thing.
Are you asking if there is a range of like average selling price on Amazon that does better? Like, are you asking like, should games be under 100, or are you speaking specifically to like a game and its price offering or like minimum advertised pricing? Because there's kind of two ways about that.
So it's really, I guess, from the customer when they go to a page and see your product.
Mm-hmm.
Is there? So my MSRP is $99.99, right? And when people go to Amazon, I actually, because I didn't go wide distribution, if you wanted my product on Amazon, you paid me $100 for it, and I knew that I would sell out. I just didn't want to discount myself and then sell out and make less money. And so, but there are a lot of situations where, let's say, if I have in theory like an unlimited number of units, I buy 5,000 at a time. I can always reorder if they start selling out and that kind of thing. You obviously want to balance the money that comes to you versus the value that you give to the consumer. And I guess I'm just looking for some tips to kind of optimize that equation in Amazon terms. So like everybody always wants a deal, but what kind of deal should it be? And do people care about like the MSRP of the product compared to how much it's discounted, or is there like a more valuable benchmark? Like Stars of Icarus, you mentioned that could be like $150 game. Does a $150 game sell on Amazon? And questions like that.
Yeah, so I would say that on Amazon, yes, people are deal driven. Um, and then it goes into where does your product fall in those first three buckets that we also talked about, right? Like, is it a branded product? Or is it like you're going after unbranded search terms? And then I would say, really, at the end of the day, take a step back and as a consumer, what do you think you should be paying for that game? And whether it doesn't matter if it's a deal price or it's a not deal price, just net, like, should your game be this price, right? Now, yes, Amazon folks want to see a slash through, they want to see a red discount, and then they want to see all that's there. That's what Sean was asking about earlier. Yes, I mean, you could be running coupons, you could be running all these things that when people are searching on your phone, that they want to see, because they stop scrolling when they see something like a coupon or a percentage or a slash through, right? But that doesn't mean that like you can kind of like drop or dump your price of your product. If deliverance is $99 on let's say like your .com site, then do it for 119 on Amazon as your MSRP, and then you can run a slash through to show that it's $99. Now there's a little bit of savings that's there. Now, the other thing
Is
is
that
Amazon,
like a totally legit thing where I'm like, hey, retailers, it's 99, and hey, everybody, I went to Kickstarter for 99 or whatever, and then but Amazon, I chunk it up. It's like that Black Friday meme where they increase the price and then
yeah.
discount it.
Well, they do, and that's what on Amazon as a list price, as you
Mhm.
see it, your list price can always be higher. And in the like in my corporate world, list price is always higher than like what like the reseller or the retailer will sell it for. Where MSRP could technically be 99, list price is technically 119, right? And then so you got a slash through that's there. I would say that's like kind of the bare minimums that you should do. But when you're doing things like coupons and you're doing things like prime exclusive pricing deals and these big events, you should take advantage and give your customers a little bit of extra savings because they're probably paying attention. Again, assuming you're kind of in this, like, they're looking at your product from a branded standpoint, because they're waiting for you to just give them that like little bit enough to make them feel like I saved a little bit of money that's there, right? And it helps on these prime days and these, especially now, like during holiday season. But I would say that like what we've learned even to no escape when it's not running promos or anything, and it goes back to its regular like $29.99 or sometimes $34.99 price, we don't see like a humongous drop off in sales. So it tells us that we're kind of now putting ourselves into that other bucket where it's not just a completely like unbranded sale of just being a party game. Like people are kind of paying attention to No Escape and Open House Studios or games, and they're still buying it. And it's the other thing I was going to say is it all has to do with that keyword equity too, because when you start to be on that page one, you don't always have to be on some kind of sale to get the conversion because people might just like all the content that you have there. They went to BGG or maybe they did a quick Google search or YouTube video and they buy it. And those are the other things that can kind of like raise your ASP and offset a lot of discounting. But if you're not doing a lot of that, and why I'm saying this too is if you're not doing a lot of that, coupons and prime exclusive and all these kind of sale vehicles that you can do, they're actually very good ways that you can help to sell your product because you might not be doing advertising. So just imagine like if you're going to pay for advertising for your product, take that money out and you're kind of investing it into discounting your product now at that time. So there's different ways that you can kind of look at this. I mean, end of the day, as a business owner, you should be looking at your top line of sales, minus all the things that you're discounting or all the things that you're paying for in the middle, which is advertising of some sort, and then getting down to your profits, right? So kind of different ways to move your money around to sell your product, if that's whether discounting or advertising.
So, Henry, when it comes to Facebook ads, we tend to find that products that sell within the sort of $30 to $60 sell really well on e-commerce. Is there a sweet spot of like a price point on Amazon that just tends to do better than other price points?
Yeah, that's what I was asking Andrew earlier. We definitely are seeing that, below. I think the appetite there is still around $60. That's there, but again, it has to do with perceived value of the game. So if you're looking at a 60, I would say it's a on the higher end side. They're gonna probably be looking at a lot of the images inside there, the creative, right? So what's in that game? Like, is there like deluxe components? Or like what is the game? And then at $60, you're probably very much into a very large space of like board gamers as hobbyists. So then they're going to go and probably do a quick BGG search, and they're going to go look at the ratings, which we actually build into our A plus content if it's especially if it's favorable most of the time. But they're going to do a little bit of research that's there. I would say as you come down that price, and where we love to be is like kind of like the $25 to $35 range is where they're not going to really kind of like care to go to BGG. They're going to be like, what's the ratings? Do the pictures look cool? Is this kind of in my, like what I want to be playing or the next game I want to be playing? That's what we kind of build into our content. So it's very explicit of like what you're getting and does that fit of what you're asking for? And when it's there, the decision making is much more lower barrier to entry than it is to a game that commands a higher price. So like a Stars of Icarios, $80 game that we have on regular days, they're going out there and they're checking like, this and that. We get a lot of feedback of, 1.5 is coming, or the errata's fixed, like blah, blah, blah. But like we expect it because as you demand a higher price, you're going to start to pull in a different group, a different audience that's looking for your game. Being under again, 25, 40, maybe even up to like a $50 range is where you can kind of keep folks within Amazon, which is where you want them to be, and then help them make that quick decision. And if you got a 10% off sale, they're like, well, you know what? Like, it's like $40. I'm just going to buy it. It'll be here tomorrow. I can test it out. And if I don't like it, I'm going to throw it back in the box. I'm going to hit the return button and say that I don't like it. But goal is, hey, you got them to buy it. They're going to play it this Friday with their family. They're going to love it. And then that's like the games that continue to sell, hundreds to thousands of units a month, and kind of like little tidbits of strategical thinking there.
That's awesome. So then you can actually be kind of like the outsourced marketing agency that sells exclusively on Amazon, right? I mean, that's one of the major things that Games does. How do people get in contact with you if they want to be considered for something like that, or if they want to consider you for something like that?
Sure. So I'm not sure if our website has been completed yet, but basically our website is avantgames.us. If not, you can always email me directly. That's henry@avantgames.us. And feel free to reach out. That's usually the best way. We've just been so fortunate enough that, referrals keep coming in, and folks keep looking for some help on Amazon. But yeah, typically we do set up this exclusive partnership, but it's not in any like malformed decision that we do that. The whole other thing again that we can talk about different things, but it's like when you have 30 sellers selling your product and then they dump your price, or you got like all of these kind of bad resellers that are on there. You can't control your price is one thing. And even worse, like if you don't have control of your content as a brand, you'll start to see some really gnarly stuff being put up on Amazon. It's a really bad cleanup, or the Wild West, as we would call it.
Yep.
So price control, content control, that's the biggest two pieces. The buy box on Amazon, again, a whole nother conversation to have. But like when you lose buy box on Amazon and some other seller has it, your ads will turn off, your keyword equity starts to diminish as a seller, et cetera, et cetera. So all kinds of bad things can happen when you got tons of bad actors on Amazon.
Yeah, and I've discussed this in a podcast probably a very long time ago, but we had a client that ran into this problem where they sold lots and lots of copies at distribution, and they ran into a trouble of like when we were running their ads, we were basically selling for someone on Amazon that had their product deep discounted, and it was a situation that when you sell and you just drop 5,000 to 6,000 games in distribution, and the only people that are buying it are deep discounters, there's an unlimited supply, and they're making lots of sales, and so of course they're going to reorder, and because they're buying it at 60% off or whatever, and so it's one of those things that you do need to be careful. The more you get your product into distribution, the more, I guess, the more carefully you must tread with the price controls, right? And so that's great advice. So any final advice you have before we bring this thing in for a landing to our listeners, or anything else you wanted to say?
I just wanted to share, and maybe this is more of the closing, but Avant's like vision, if you will, is while we've been talking about everything on Amazon, obviously we do other things in other spaces, but also like what I would call surround sound marketing that's here, and especially in the board game space, we think it's a big need. We worked with you guys, as you know, like doing .com and doing brands to a branded store is very crucial, because especially if you want to build your brand to there. But we're not saying that like Amazon's the only place to be. We're just saying it is probably the most important place to be in the US today, right? And so, because just folks are there. Our kind of like our vision is, we think there's a very good place if your game is like a light or even a medium weight game, that when you go from crowdfunding and then you go to filling your backers, right? And especially if you have a successful campaign, that means that once your games start filling, people are probably talking about it. And then, so that means people are going to like Google and social and talking about it and searching for it. All of that in from a data standpoint is great momentum to carry into Amazon. That's kind of like our business vision. Like, you should be taking that and going to Amazon, because you're going to get free branded traffic, because people are going to start looking for your game that's there. And one thing of like, I think that like No Escape has like benefit was, I think there was a recent game, was it called Gnome Hollow?
Yeah.
That just came out.
Yep.
I started looking at my ads of what was converting, and I saw like conversions for Gnome Hollow, because unfortunately I think like Gnome Hollow was out of stock, or they launched and they weren't on Amazon yet. And people were like, oh wow, I like this No Escape game. So we just started selling some No Escapes thanks to Gnome Hollow, right? But like, that's my point. Like, if Gnome Hollow goes to there, goes like quick, does it right, like they probably could be selling hundreds and hundreds of units. I don't know, today they could be, but that's the other thing, that like you could be doing that and going from like a crowdfunding to Amazon. Then when you go to Amazon, do all of that. But if you got a .com store, and you could be like helping out your friendly local gaming stores, because we always get pushback of like, aren't you killing the friendly local gaming stores? And we're like, no, because I'm a friendly local gaming store customer. And if I go to Amazon and I see that like, you know, like Lord of the Rings Journeys to Middle Earth is like $79.99. Let's say we're not in Christmas because everything's deep discount, right? But like, I see Lord of the Rings is like $79.99. And I'm like, wow, this is a really cool game on Amazon. I'm going to drive, 10 minutes down the street to my FLGS, and I'm going to buy it there, because they're set up to be a great point of availability. They're not set up to be a great kind of like merchandising out in the open space place. So I think it's very good from a brand owner to think like surround sound marketing. If you do it right on Amazon, they can also go to the friendly local gaming stores to buy it. Unfortunately, it also works the other way around too, to window shop there and to buy it on Amazon. But I think at the end of the day, again, if you look at it from a very high level of a business owner, like, is your distribution done right, friendly local done right, Amazon done right, your .com done right, social presence, you could be killing it in every place.
Yeah, and I think that I'm really excited about this, because I believe that every small business, in the board game space, needs to have a direct sales, just direct from their website. You need to be able to sell stuff on a regular basis. And from there, I think Amazon is really, really important. And if you don't have both of those streams, or at least the Amazon stream, because that can be your direct sales in essence, I think that is a larger percentage of the lifeblood of a business, especially for a newer business. That's a way that you can kind of cut through the noise. And that's the whole reason that we use Kickstarter at GameFound, because, in the first place, because these large companies like Asmodee and whatnot, they have the money and the distribution network to push out a new product, and we don't. So we go to Kickstarter because that's the way that an independent person like me can make $500,000 to make a cool idea I had. And so I can actually get the money to manufacture it. But then how do I sell it then if I don't have the distribution network? Well, number one is ads, but there are only so many people on Facebook that are browsing that will buy. I can't spend $1 million a month on Facebook ads and make $3 million a month on my website. Where do you go to start scaling? And Amazon, over 80, I want to say it's over 80% of all e-commerce searches now begin on Amazon. And that is an absurdly high statistic. And it's probably actually low, or it's probably actually higher than what I just quoted. It's pretty absurd. So yeah, I mean, it's just such an integral part of my company's like future outlook and future strategy, because I think that's where a grassroots effort can really find purchase. As you mentioned, like the companies that are the big ones are not necessarily the ones doing the best. And so at the moment, I'm able to compete with bigger names than me because if I leverage Amazon's algorithm better, and if I leverage buzz around my game. So I
Yeah,
really like that.
and even just sorry to like, that was the other thing too, that like we get the heartstrings that get pulled on because we've worked with a good amount of designers slash publishers that are just, one, they're like, I can't get into large distribution, or two, like, I want to get away from large distribution. And it's like automotive, where I came from there, where your salesman in automotive, they carry a catalog of a million products, right? And so they don't know they can't sell a million products, and they're not going to highlight your million products. So when you become one of those products in a large distribution, if from a branded side, like if people are searching for your game, that's great. But there's how many board games that come out a year? Like I heard over 10,000 games get published a year. And so like, you're just going to be another product on their shelf. Not speaking that in a bad way. It might get into friendly local game stores, but they also typically kind of build a package of like, we'll also take you to Amazon. And then that's where we see them on Amazon. And we're just like, that sucks. Like when I look at that product and the way that that's built from a merchandising standpoint, no one's going to buy that. But I know it's such a good game, and I will tell my friends to buy it, but they're not buying it because they saw it on Amazon as a new
Right.
person. They bought it because of me telling them a 5-minute story of why they should buy the product.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's excellent words to end with. We're gonna have. First of all, this episode was fantastic. I learned so much, and I can't wait to apply it. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. We're gonna have Robot Richard send us on out.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's episode of Crowdfunding Nerds. For more resources, articles, and to listen to past podcasts, please visit us at crowdfundingnerds.com. And if you have a crowdfunding question, we also have a page on our site where you can send a message directly to us. Please visit crowdfundingnerds.com/question. And if your question is a great question, we may include it in a future podcast. Thank you all again for listening to this week's episode, and we'll see you next week. Stay nerdy.